Today's shir is a hemshach, a continuation to the previous shir on the din that one is not allowed to make dairy bread. In the previous year, we discussed in general the Isser, and also in general the Heterim. When are you allowed to make dairy bread? In today's shir, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to go more beprotius, more in the din, in the Isser of making dairy bread. We're going to take it apart, the Isser, and as well as the heter as well. The Gemara says that a person is not allowed to make prepare a dough that's dairy. That means he makes a regular dough and he puts milk inside and he makes the dough milchiks. It's an isser to make the dough, which means he's an isser to bake, to make bread, dairy bread. And the halacha is if somebody makes dairy bread, it's asr to eat. You're not allowed to make it, and if you make it, it's asr to eat. The same din is the opposite. You're not allowed to make fleishige bread. Let's say you want to put in fat of meat. It gives a good flavor. So you want to make, not that you want to put in pieces of meat inside the bread. We're talking about you want to put fat in the dough and give it a flavor, a fleishige flavor. It's aser. And the reason why it's aser is we're afraid that a person's going to forget that this bread is milchiks. And 2 days down the line, when he's going to sit down for supper, he's going to eat his chicken, his meat. He'll make a chicken sandwich with this bread that's milchiks. That's the Isser. The shaila is this Isser a Isser only on bread? The Gemara is speaking about Isa, and you made it into bread. What's about pasaba b'kistin and mezainis? Crackers, cookies, cake, dairy, cookies, and crackers. Is it the same? Is that also included in the Isser of making dairy bread? You're not allowed to make dairy bread, and if you make dairy bread, it's also to eat. What's about mezainis?
The bread itself is eaten with dairy and cookies are not necessarily something common to think necessarily.
So the emes is like this. What Yaakov's pointing out is that why are we clearing b'chlal by cake? Cake is not eaten, let's say, not with fleishiks, not with milchiks. Certain cakes, Yataka right, and we're going to get to that Be'ez Hashem soon when we go through the heterim. There's a heter of certain type of products that you don't eat it, like we're going to see. These are certain type of sweet bread that you don't eat with cheese. You're allowed to make it fleishiks. But we're not talking about a cracker or a cookie or something that you won't eat with chicken or with milchiks. We're talking about a cracker that you would eat either way. You would eat it with milchiks or with fleishiks. Are you allowed to make such a cracker either milchiks or fleishiks? And the emes is that it's negeya hundreds of times over. The market is flooded with such products. And the emes says, when I lived in Eretz Yisrael, the Chanukah, one of the donuts, there was a milchik donut, but the donut was milchiks, not because they put milchiks inside. That we'll get to soon, if these milchiks on top or milchik inside in a packet. But making the dough itself, making a milchiks, and it was a big tumult, a big shaila about making the dough itself milchiks. So is there a problem of making dairy mezainis, dairy pasaba b'kissin, and crackers, cookies? So it seems to be more a heintige shaila. The earlier achronim don't speak about it. Some want to be medayik from the Chachmas Adam, the Aruch HaShulchan, which the Piskei Tshuva brings the marit of a case that if it's a sweet type of bread, the marit calls it gluska. So over there you don't have to be choishish that this sweet bread you're going to eat it with milchiks, and maybe you can make it fleishiks. That's what the marit says. Piskei Tshuva brings it. And just a second, Avram, a second. And it seems that only a case where it's sweet, you're allowed to do it. But if not, you're not allowed to make it fleishiks. And it seems like they learned that he's talking about Pasa Bava Kistin. I don't know. He says gluska yafas. It could be a bread also. That they want to be medayik. Seemingly that it would be aser. Some want to be medayik from others. Maybe a yaivitz that it's mutter. It's not clear in the earlier poskim what the halach is. What was your question?
Is the shaila if this was included in the original Isser, or it was a special din of Pascha B'Kislev? What's the shaila?
The shaila is very good. You're asking.
It's a hemshech. It's from the original halacha of bread. That's what you're saying.
Very good. The shaila is if in the gzeira of lechem, is it dafka lechem means hamoitzi, or pasaba b'kisin be a side is included in bread for many dinim, and memela pasaba b'kisin is what the Gemara is talking about. But good point, we're going to get to it soon. We'll speak about other items, other products as well. We're talking about only mezainis, and the shaila is if it's nichlal in what the Gemara says pas. So l'maisa it's a shaila. Rebelsky and Shulchan Alevi says clearly that there is no isser. It's mamash negei. People make muffins and rogalach. I'm not talking about that they put stuffing of dairy inside. I'm talking about regular, you make a berry muffin, but they make it milchix because they put milk inside. Rebelsky says in Shulchan Alevi, the Gzeira is not talking about Pascha B'Kislev, and other poskim say that it is a problem. So it's a machlokes. The OU goes with Rebelsky's psak, and the OU has tons of products, OUD, of crackers and many different products, not bread. Bread not. But crackers and cookies, these taka OUD, dairy products. Now it's important to mention that Avada, the OU, or anyone, we have to understand that even if you're allowed to do it, it's not nichlal, the Isser Chachamim of making dairy bread, but you have to let people know. If not, there'll be a michshel. If you make dairy muffins, and you're allowed to make dairy muffins, mezainis muffins, you go with the psak, but you send it over to somebody, Erev Shabbos, and they're going to serve it for dessert, they don't know that it's milchix. You have to let them know. The OU says clearly, we let people know that it's milchix. It says on the package, OUD. For the takonas chachamim, we'll see what type of heterim you need. But over here, this does not go into the takonas chachamim of dairy bread. The isser of dairy bread is only on bread, and it's not an isser on crackers, on cookies. Now let's move along to other items. And first we'll start with wine. We'll start with wine, Chuvas Tzemach Tzedek. The earlier Tzemach Tzedek, the Magen Avram brings him already. The Tzemach Tzedek speaks about a case, a story, that there was a season in the wine, that the wine was very dark, and it wasn't so appetizing. The flavor, the taste was very good. It just didn't look good. It looked too dark. It looked like it was spoiled or it was off. People thought maybe it was spoiled. So the company wanted to put milk inside to lighten it up. Pasha, to lighten it up. The shaila is, are you allowed to? Are you allowed to put milk into the wine? You're making it milchig wine. The Gemara is speaking about bread. Is mezainis included? A machloikis. What's about wine? Could you make milchig wine? Oh, very good, Rabbi Shlomo Yosef. This shaila really is mischalek to two. These two parts to the question. Let's first speak about that you put in so much wine that it's not batal b'shishim. Right? It's not batal b'shishim, which means there's more milk than 60% wine, and memela, the wine is dairy. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't become batal. It's not batal b'shishim. So you're making milchig wine. Are you allowed to make milchig wine? The Gemara speaks about pas. The Gemara doesn't speak about anything else. The Tzemach Tzedek says that huadin wine as well. Huadin. And it's not only the Tzemach Tzedek, it's the Chachmas Adam, and it's the Magen Avram in Hilchas Pesach. The Magen Avram in Hilchas Pesach says the reason why you're now allowed to make milchig wine, because just like bread, a person eats bread with milchiks, with fleishiks. Huadin wine, a person eats wine, drinks wine with fleishiks. So if you're going to make milchig wine, it's a problem. You're going to drink the milchig wine with fleishiks. The Tzemach Tzedek actually even takes it a step further, and he says that wine's even worse than bread. Bread, what are we worried about by bread? That a person's going to forget 2 days later and he's going to eat a milchig bread with fleishiks. Wine can last for 6 months, for 12 months, for 5 years. And you keep it in your basement, and 3 years later you have to remember that the wine is still milchiks. So Mamela, these poskim say that one is not allowed to make milchig wine. Again, it's milchig wine because there is no 60% wine to be mevatel the milk. It's milchig wine. That's a shitas ha'isrim. You're not allowed to make milchig wine. Yes.
Doesn't go you think, stick on a label.
You're asking, you should be able to stick on a label. Now, why are you only asking me the shaila by wine? Why not by bread also? By bread, could you stick on a label? We'll speak about it. We're gonna Be'ez Hashem get to sticking on a label.
People use bread. People eat that week. People not.
So you say Yaakov saying a very good svara. The label situation we're going to get to soon. That's a big shaila in general. We'll get to the label if that helps. But just mamash a second, Mordechai. You're saying something else. That lechem, ki lechem yichya adam, a person, at least in the olden days, used to eat bread, breakfast, lunch, and supper. So mamela, when you eat bread, the milchig of bread, if you're going to forget, you're for sure eating the bread with fleishiks, and you're going to be over basa v'chalav. However, wine is not as common to have it with every single type of every meal. Wine was more as a drink because juices didn't last, didn't have a fridge. Wine was made to drink, so it wasn't as much as a staple like lechem yichya adam. Therefore, there are shitas that argue, the shitas of Nachlas Tzvi and the Aruch HaShulchan. They hold that wine, there is no problem of making milchig wine. So we have a machlokes if you're allowed to make milchig wine. Bread is a gemara you're not allowed to. Mezainis is questionable if it's included. Now moving away from the Gemara, wine, these are machlokes aposkim if you're allowed to make milchig wine. But again, you're making milchig wine. It's milchig wine kipshuta because there's milk inside. It's milchig wine.
If you hold wine as a problem, why is Mezainis not the same kashashu, same whatever it is?
Lamais is like this. Why would you're asking good? You want to know if if the ones that hold wine as a problem, then l'chayra mezayna should also be a problem. And you're really asking a kasha. It's interesting. No one brings a raya from the wine that mezayna should also be a problem. I think offhand the teretz would be like this: wine. The reason why they say wine is a problem, two reasons. Firstly, because it's something that you drink all the time, and it lasts very long. So the svara of lasting very long, cake doesn't last very long, which means it's not worse, it's not as bad as wine. But you're saying it's medoimet to bread. But the other svara that wine is like bread because wine is you drink it all the time. I don't think at least then mezoinus was something that you ate all the time. So that's l'chayra why from wine. It's a good shayla taka. Why don't you have a raya from wine that's aser than who had the mezoinus also? But l'chayra, the wine would be worse. And mamela, there's a poskim that say wine is aser. So we have a machlokes wine, milchig wine, if it's a problem or not. Yes, Mordechai.
Who says mezoinus is aser? You said Rebelski is mutter. Who said?
The heintige svarim say that it's aser. I think the Eidach Reidus goes with that also because they're makbid that the milchig of berekes should be a different shape, which means that it goes into the gzera. Just benegeya wine that we said.
I'll tell you more about the labels. You can say that the wine wasn't put into the gzera straight. It wasn't put in the gzera straight out. Okay, so you can put a label. It's saying the chal in the hell made the gzera, so
that's true.
It didn't say that you can make happy with the label. I'm saying that what you asked.
No, if wine, make it very clear, if wine is aser, means when the Chachamim made the gzeira on bread, it's huadin on wine also. If you say that it's not aser, it's not nichlal on the gzeira. It happens to be you need a label, pashit, not to forget. What'd you say? Why does it say pas? So that's the shaila. Maybe pas is a urcha de milsa, not got pas, but huadin wine. Fakert, the Tzemach Tzedek says that wine is even worse than pas. When the Gemara says pas, it's kolshkin wine. I don't think it's such a kasha wine. The Gemara to chap on every single case. I mean, if there's only two cases, you're right. I don't think it's such a kasha. The Gemara says bread, huadin. Magen Avram's lashon, I think, is huadin wine also. Lamaisif, this shaila about wine. The Oilers was probably looking, I hear wine, when this Shaila happened, who puts in wine now, and who puts in milk into wine? Lamaisa, the Minchas Yitzchak has a very interesting tshuva about making alcohol from milk. Speaks about it by Riches, and he says it's going to be toil in this machlokes. Lamaisa, if you hold you're not allowed to make milk and wine, you can make alcohol from milk as well. And he wants to say that it's even worse. Alcohol is even a bigger michshel, because lamaisa alcohol, milchige alcohol, you use it also for ingredients all over. It could be a big michshel. But that would be something that's noiveya from this shaila that was speaking about milchige wine. Atkan is the shaila. Atkan is the shaila. What'd say? What do you mean a milchig ingredient? So, we're going to get to that in a minute about any other products, and let's see if it's still shayach or shayla. But wine is something that's miskayim, and something that you eat with everything, and memela alcohol as well. But you're saying any milchig ingredient, we'll get to that in a minute. Mamash in a minute. So we have so far bread, yizicha kant, mezoinus is a shayla, milk that's dairy is a shayla. Let's go now to milk that you want to put in. You want to put in some milk, but it's going to be bottled b'shishim. And the emes is this shaila is not only negated by milk, by wine. Rabbi said this shaila is negated by bread also. You want to put in a little bit of milk inside the bread, but less than shishim. I'm sorry, you have shishim bread against the milk. There'll be bottled b'shishim. Are you allowed to put in that milk into the bread? Or into the wine. What'd you say? Al chizusa. The Nachal Tzvitaka speaks about it. He has a way out. But let's even say on the problem of chizusa. That's also a reason why it shouldn't become bottled. Let's first address the basic shaila. The basic shaila of wine. Of bottle b'shishim zchvarana din ein mevatel isel et chatchila. Since you're not allowed to be mevatel isel et chatchila, a person's not allowed to take a little bit of treif and put into his cholent, and if a person does it, the halacha is it's asa, you're not allowed to eat it. So ibazai, you're not allowed to l'chayra, you should not allow to put in some milk into your bread, into your dough, because that's an issa, the chacham asir of making milchig bread. And that's the shittas of the Tzemach Tzedek. One is not allowed to put in milk into his bread and become bottled because the same thing also, he says you're not allowed to put milk into wine. If it's less than shishim, you're for sure not allowed to because it's milk and wine. But even if there's more shishim to be mavatal, you're not allowed to because they mavatal nesel chatchila. Why would it be tali?
That was the truth of Salvosky by other cases.
We use that lagabe kashering, we use that lagabe later, but I don't see why it would make a chiluk. Now we're talking about emavata neselat chatchila. So if it's issa chefza, issa gavra, even if it's issa chefza, it's issa gavra. Emavata nesi, I'll be matal issa. Let's go to the tzad het and we'll see lochayr should make an aftermin also. The tzad issa, the Tzemach Tzedek says it's aser, and the reason why it's aser says the Tzemach Tzedek very clearly because it's emavata neselat chatchila. Yeah, I hear what the Olam's asking that it's not an Isser. No, it's going to be Isser.
If there's no Shisha, there will be Isser. But now there's no Isser.
That because of Shishem, I don't think that's a right taina. Because you're not allowed to put milk into your cholent, even though there's 600 times against that milk.
Hold on, what is Chazal asking? Milk in the dough or milk in the dough? What are they asking?
So you
I said milk in the dough, it's not milk in the dough. That's to put milk in dough.
That's what the Nachal Tzvi asks. You're right, Taka. The Nachal Tzvi asks, there's no aim of vatan isla chatchila. It's not isra b'chlal. They said you're not very good. You must be very clear. You're not. They only asked her to make milchig dough. You're not making milchig dough. It became bottle, so it's not milchig dough. That's a tzad. That's a tzad heter. The Magen Avram and the Chachmas Adam that we mentioned before that say you're not allowed to make milchig wine, but here they say you are allowed to make milchig. You're allowed to put in a little bit. Only by wine they're speaking about. You're allowed to put in a little bit when it's bottled b'shishim. And the reason why you're allowed to do it, why you're allowed to put in a little bit, is Dr. Chachmas Adam, the Magen Avram, because you're not being mechaven to put the wine into be mevatel the wine. Even though these aim mevatel and isalat chatchila, but if you're not mechaven to be mevatel, it's mutter. You with me? If you're not mechaven to be mevatel, you're not being mechaven to be mevatel the milk. In bread, when you put in a little bit of bread, the taco would be a problem because you mechavet, you mevatel the milk. But here, by the wine, you know why you're putting in milk? Not because you want to mevatel the milk. You're putting in milk because you want the wine to look good. Moshel Lamo had dover doima. The Shulchan Aruch says in Hilchas Talam, Siman Pei Daled, Sif Yud Daled, if somebody has honey and these bugs inside the honey, so it's not bottled because it's a barrier. So the Shulchan Aruch says, cook up the honey, the bugs are going to fall apart, you masad in it, but it's not a barrier anymore, and the mela becomes bottled. How you allowed to do it? Explain the Taz and the Shach right there. That you're allowed to do it. There's no problem with and the reason for that is because you're not being mechavan to be mevatel. You're not cooking up the honey to destroy the bugs. People will make milkshakes with strawberries, the strawberry yogurts. They're not shredding up the strawberries to crush the bugs, to be mevatel. They're doing it because they want to make parade. They don't need it. The word is they're not mechavan to be mevatel. Not mechavan to be mevatel. A mela works. A mela over here by the wine, you're not being mechavan to be mevatel the milk. But bread would be a problem. The Nachlas Tzvi says even bread you're allowed because it's not called Eimavat and Isser like the Umazma very clear. Eimavat and Isser is when you put it in, there'll be Isser. The Isser is milchiga bread. You have no milchiga bread. What'd you say? By the bread, you're only putting in the milk because you want the milk. You're putting it in for the milk.
Yeah, but you're not doing it to be mevatel. You're putting it in.
No, when it means mevatel means you want the milk, but lamaisa it's aser saterities you're relying on bittel. That's called you being mevatel isel chatchila, as opposed to you're not putting in the milk because you want the milk. You're putting in the milk because you want to change the color of the wine. So you're not putting in the milk to be mevatel the milk. Mevatel isel chatchila means when you're putting it in, you're mechavan to mevatel. When you put the milk into the bread, you're being mechavan to mevatel the milk. When you put the milk into the wine, you're not being mechavan to mevatel the milk. You're not involved with the milk. You're putting it in for the color. You're right.
You don't need the bulbs.
Not only you're right. It's too much to go into it right now. But the emes is by the bugs. The poskim say I think it's your kiveger that you're not allowed to put bugs in. If the bugs are there, he would talk about putting in. You're right, there's a ganze shmuz. You don't need it. You want to cook it up. Here it's a bigger chiddush, you want to put it in also. But al kaponim, even though you're putting it in, you're not putting it into mevatel. I hear what you're asking. It's taka shtickle shayli. You're asking that it's taka, you're putting it in lamaisa, you're putting in, you want the milk. You want the milk for the color, but you want the milk. So we spoke about bread as klor in the Gemara that it's aser. We spoke about mezainis as a machloikis. We spoke about wine, milchiga wine as a machloikis. And then we spoke about when it's not going to be milchiga wine, but you want to be mevatel isel at chatchila, what's the din over there? Which means these shishim to be mevatel. What's about other items besides bread and wine? Any other products? Is there an isser to make it milchiks? What'd you say?
Bread and wine is something you'll have with meat.
Oh, so you're saying bread and wine is a reason why to aser because it's something you eat. But you're saying, let's say a chocolate bar. No one ever thought to have a problem. No one eats. You don't eat chocolate with meat. Yeah, very good, very good. That's the mistaber. But let's take a look. The Taz says that a meducha, a grinder that is parif, and Shuman went through, and when Shuman went through, it kind of made the meducha, made it fleishiks. So the Taz says it's aser. You're not allowed to use a fleishig meducha because you might use spices to go through that grinder for dairy. That's what the Taz says. It happens to just be that the Chavas Das, the Nesivus explains that the Taz is only by a grinder, because you're saying very mistaber. Everything else, you can't have a milchig, you can't have chicken soup that's fleishik. Well, you can have milchig products, fleishig products. The Chavas Das says that only a grinder is a problem, because this grinder is a par of item. You ever heard of you're not allowed to have a fleishig pot because you might use a fleishig pot with milchiks? No. This is a par of item, and if it turns milchiks, we're afraid that you're going to use it with fleishiks. So only by a grinder. Me'idach, the Pri Chadash says that only by a grinder is not a problem, Because fakir, a meducha, you miyachet for basa, you have a milcha go on and a fleisha go on. But the pashtus in the poskim is like you mentioned, that anything else, you can make milchiks, you can make fleishiks, it's only a shaila only by bread. It's not a shaila, it's aser. Mizayim is a shaila, wine is a shaila, and then we went into Emavatim, which we're going to get back to shortly. Just to quickly go through the heterim that we mentioned in last year, we saw Machlokes Rishonim, and Rashi says that even though you're not allowed to make milchig bread, if you make it a davar mu'et, since you eat it miyad, it's a little bit, and you eat it right away, it's mutter. So it means you're not allowed to make milchig bread, but if you eat it right, you make a little bit, and you eat it right away, it's mutter. What does it mean, making a little bit and eating it right away? Making a little bit depends on your family size. If a person has 25 people, then he's allowed to make 25, let's say, rolls or amount for all the people. Depends on the family size. That's what Aruch HaShulchan says. What does it mean, miyad? Right away? That meal? So the poskim, starting already from the Ramah and Toras Chatas, says a lashon that for that day. For that day. He says Shabbos, which really, just before Shabbos, the Pri Megadim brings that from the Machaber. The lashon HaMachaber would seem just for that Suda. Miyad. The lashon HaMachaber, Kedei Achila B'Vasachas, which means you eat it up right there and then it's mutter. But the Ramah Taka says Shabbos, the Toras Chatas, he says if you eat it today, it's okay. For tomorrow, it's a problem because we're afraid that you're going to forget. Now, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow means tomorrow morning. The Aruch HaShulchan says you have 24 hours. And B'Pashtus, that's the pshat in the Toras Chatas also, because the Ramah brings the case of Shabbos. Shabbos, which Pashtus means for the whole Shabbos, which is 24 hours. One thing I couldn't find, maybe a lot of things I couldn't find clarity in, but one thing I couldn't find is for 24 hours, you're allowed to make amount for 24 hours. But does the clock start right when it comes out of the oven? Which means you have to bake the bread Friday afternoon, and then when it comes out, you have 24 hours? Or you use it for 24 hours. So it means, could I bake it Tuesday already for Shabbos? What's the gather? And if I bake it Tuesday, technically by Shabbos, I might forget. It's a little bit of a shaila. I don't have such clarity. What's the time limit? Again, Rashi says ma'at, which we explained that you have enough people to finish it, and besides ma'at, it also has to be within 24 hours. But you bake it right before?
If you're saying you have to do Shabbos, then for sure more than 24 hours.
I think it's
You have to bake it before Shabbos.
What'd you say?
If you're saying that you could use it for Shabbos, yeah, it has to be you have more than 24
But how much more? So you're right. It means Erev Shabbos. I want to just finish up because I want to get to one final halacha l'maisa. What's in Shitas Rashi that it's ma'at a little bit and you have to finish it? What happens if you had 25 people and then the party was cancelled? Or the oilam wasn't so in the mood, it wasn't so tasty, they didn't eat his leftovers. You have to throw it out, it becomes aser. Or as of a matter of, those two cases. So you're saying no, and the maramakim for that I found was the Zer Zav. The Zer Zav on the Isser V'Heter says that since the Isser is only Isser to bake milchig bread, but once you made it Beheter, it's not a problem. The same thing is applicable. Let's say you have challah, and it became fleishiks. By the Shabbos meal, it became fleishiks. So there's an Isser to make fleishig bread. What's if it became fleishiks? Do you have to throw it out? The Torah says it's only Isser to bake it. But there's no Isser. Once it was baked Beheter, there's no problem. This week at Shmuz later, Gavra Hefza. L'maisa is like this. One final idea to bring up, and this ties up the whole shir, is the item in the market very popular, which is a Thomas English muffin. The OU certifies. It's a bread, this muffin. It's a hamoitzi. And it's OUD, it's dairy. So based on everything we spoke before, let's just try to get clarity over here. How do they certify bread, the English muffin, which is l'chayra milchiks? As a matter of fact, one of the big kashrus agencies just pulled their hechsher on a certain very big bread company. I think they switched it back, but they pulled it because the company said they want to start making their breads dairy. And the hechsher said, then we can't certify because we don't certify dairy bread. So how do they certify this roll? Now I left out one small thing and be moichel another minute. one small idea, Lagabe the Rambam, that says that if you make it a different surah, the Rambam says that also, a different shape, it's also fine. So the Olam brought up before, which is also Kedai to discuss now, what's about external shape, which means instead of the bread being a different shape, you want to package it, write dairy on it. So there was a Shita held years ago that also would include in the heter, how the Rambam learns the Gemara that a shape is also fine, even the package. But Lamaisa and the Kashrus agencies used to rely on it, they no longer rely on it to have an external hecker, which means to put on the package that it's dairy. So how does this English muffin, how does it have a hechsher, O-U-D, it's dairy, l'chayr it's dairy bread. So the teretz is, based on what we said clearly before, that it's batal b'shisha. There is no 60, these more bread, 60 times more bread than the milk that goes in. And the Mela, it's bottle. So we said it's a machlokes, and it goes like the shita that there is no problem of putting in a little bit of milk into bread, and therefore there's no isser of dairy bread. That's the pshat how they do it. Why do they write O-U-D? Why do they write dairy? It's bottle b'shisha. So based on what they write, and I spoke to Rabbi Gerstein yesterday, he spoke here, gave a shiam basa v'chalav. These at least 3 reasons why they write dairy. One is for allergies, so even though they write it in the label, they write it over in D as in dairy, which means allergies, even if it's more than 1 in 60, could also be a problem, an allergy reason, pashut for legality. The second reason is they don't even mean dairy, they mean dairy equipment, which means be'etzem, it's not dairy. But this muffin was on a line before, and for Ashkenazim, dairy equipment, you can't eat it with a fleischiger sandwich. So Mela, and they owe you at least then, and most things they don't write DE, it's dairy equipment, so that's why they write DE. Don't eat this English muffin, even if it's a burger muffin, don't eat it with fleischigs, it's dairy equipment. And the third and final reason for now is that even though for the chalav there's no problem of eimavatl and isser, but since it's chalav stam, and for chalav stam there's a big shaila if mixing in chalav stam, if that goes into eimavatl and isser, which means is that called maybe mevatl and isser? So therefore they want to tell people that if you don't use chalav stam, it's dairy means this chalav stam. So what we had over here is this isser to make dairy bread, machloikas lagabe mezainis, machloikas lagabe wine. And then we spoke about the heterim of making the bread a little bit different, externally doesn't help. And we also spoke about ma'at, if you make a little bit Shitas Rashi, ma'at is only when it's small enough that it's your family eats it and within 24 hours.
No, it's a